It's Keith, Victor Echo 3 Sierra Victor Quebec, also known as the shaky key. So today I want to talk about a topic that came up yesterday when I was doing some Morse code in the SKCC. And it was an important one because certainly for myself it's something that I've had to deal with for quite a while. And this is the topic of key fright. Now, I did an earlier video a while back that looked at, some of the symptoms, how do you recognize it, and so on. Today, I'm sort of looking at some of the steps you can take to try and get over it. The steps that worked for me still work for me because I still suffer from it. So, key fright, as I prefer to call that reluctance to contact, right? RTC. Now, I'm not about to sit here and try and invent a new term, some new abbreviations, but that reluctance to contact is certainly a very strong symptom of key fright. So when we're doing this, why do you not contact that operator who's calling CQ? Why do you turn on your computer, turn to the POTA page and stare at it and never send your call sign to them, never try to contact them? So this is what we're looking at today. And I sometimes laugh and say, I could be the poster child for key fright. I've had it a long time, still deal with it. So it's a real issue. And what sort of got me thinking about it again, when I was in the SKCC yesterday on their SCED page, and there was a new operator who had put the way, well, what brought this about was yesterday when I was in the SKCC on their SCED page. And for those that don't know it, their page is divided into basically two sections. There's a very large general comment one where people can go back and forth making comments like in a chat. And there's another section over on one side, over on the right side, where if you decide to go active and you want to let people know that you're out there, beside your call sign, you can write, for instance, if you're calling CQ, you can write CQ, whatever frequency. If you're a new operator, you can write QRS beside it. And this particular operator beside his call sign has simply written, key fright is real. That was it. Key fright is real. And it got me thinking that, yeah, I darn well know it's real. And in some of his other comments over on the other side of the page, he'd indicated that absolutely scared stiff making a contact. And good for him for recognizing that. That's really important that you do. And he also mentioned that I think at one point he had made 28 contacts over a year, and that was it. And again, 28 contacts is not much by many standards, but if you've got key fright, you're doing okay. Just keep it up, pick up the speed, continue along your way. Now, I sometimes say that I should be the poster child for key fright. I've had it all of my Morse code life. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what brought it on. I think some of it was around my call sign. When I first started learning Morse code, my call sign is one of those ones that's can be pretty tricky to send and pretty tricky to receive. And I can remember sitting in a class. In those days, you did a class in a room, right? 30 of you in a room or something. And I had 3 or 4 different instructors who, having a bit of fun, would make a comment like, oh, wow, look at your call sign. Are you going to have fun time with that in Morse code? Or, wow, imagine trying to copy that call sign down. All sorts of comments like that, all meant as a joke. But here I am, brand new, and I'm going, so what's wrong with my call sign? Why is it so hard? So I think that probably started a lot of it. And, it asked me one day why. It's really funny because when I came back to Morse code after a 30-year absence, I didn't always use this call sign, VE3SVQ. I have a secondary contest call sign, VA3KEI, and that's a lot easier call sign to send. So actually, when I came back for a while, for a few weeks, months, whatever, I used that call sign because it was easier to send and easier for people to understand. And eventually I thought, well, that's just plain stupid. Use the call sign that everybody knows you by. So I went back and use my VE3 SVQ call sign, which is what I use now. But yes, that's call sign has haunted me. Those comments have haunted me all these years. So if you're an instructor out there, keep in mind what and be careful what you say to your students, because for some of them, those little words meant as a joke might be a lot more important to them than you'll ever imagine. So reluctance to contact, we said key fright is real. How do we address it? What do we do? How do we try and get over it? Well, number one, I think, and this is myself looking at myself, and I don't mind doing that, it's to get over yourself. Pretty simple. A little brutal, but simple. Get over yourself. Why are you so important, especially in the world of Morse code, that you can't be allowed to make a mistake? Why are you so important in Morse code or in the world in general that you have to be perfect? Reality is, in Morse code, you're not. Expert operators who've been doing this for decades make mistakes. So you need to get over yourself, realize you're just like everybody else when it comes to Morse code. I always refer to Morse code as the great leveler. Doesn't matter who you are. You're going to have the same issues, same problems as everybody else learning it. You're going to go through many of the exact same issues that everyone else does. So step number one, get over yourself. And lumped in with that, be able to laugh at yourself. The part of getting over yourself is laugh at yourself. How many times do I'm sending something and maybe I forget something? How many times do I send something and I go, how could I send that? Laugh at yourself. Start doing that. You're going to enjoy Morse code a lot more than getting all hung up and uptight because you made a mistake. Learn to laugh at yourself, get over yourself, appreciate that no one is perfect. And you know what? No one cares if you make a mistake. And that's number one. It's probably one of the most important ones. You have to be able to admit that you're going to make mistakes. You have to know how to recover from them. You have to have fun. Nothing more than that. It's quite simple, actually. Item number two, or step number two to getting over key fright or refusal or reluctance to contact. Practice your ICR, or as LICW now calls it, TTR. Practice, practice, practice. You have to put in your practice time. Don't sort of rush certain letters because all these letters are easy. I know them. And when you've been doing your practice sessions for who knows how many weeks and months, towards the end, it can get a little boring. So what do? You tend to speed up, maybe cut back on your practice on certain letters. I know I did. The last part of what in LICW is the BC2, the last 2 or 3 lessons, I sort of zipped through them. I just wanted to get on the air. I was fed up. I just wanted to get on the air. What letters do you think today will bite me when I'm in a contact? The very ones that I didn't put the time in. So you know what? When people say you cannot overstudy or overlearn the alphabet, it's correct. And then throw into that your basic Morse code abbreviations and your numbers. You can't play games. You've got to put the effort in. It's got to be sincere effort. And that is also another major excuse when it comes to key fright. I'm not ready. I figure the last time when I was getting ready to get on the air, I was certainly ready months before I went on. And I figure I lost probably 3 or 4 months of practicing to get ready to get on the air. It's a lot of practicing time, a lot of wasted time that I could have been contacting people on the air. So don't get into that rut of thinking, I have to practice, I'm not good enough, I have to practice, I'm not good enough. Get on the air, you're going to find out you were probably good enough months ago. So don't hold back because in your mind, you're not ready to do it. Listen to a lot of real life Morse code. Tune in the frequencies, and there's videos I've got on that. Tune in the frequencies where you're going to hear real life Morse code, especially slower operators. Listen to the mistakes. Listen to the speed. You know, copy them down. You're going to find you probably are ready. If you're at that point where you're worried about it, you're probably ready. And as Nike used to say, just do it, right? But practice that, your ICR, TTR, whatever you want to call it. Practice your call sign, sending your call sign over and over and over and over again. Record your call sign, record yourself sending it so you understand what it's going to sound like when someone calls you or sends it back to you. We all have excuses for doing nothing, but if you put practice time in, you've run out of that excuse. Number three, I would say, is set an easy, attainable goal, especially in the first few months or especially weeks of doing this. Don't get crazy and say, I'm going to make 10 contacts a day. Yeah, probably not going to, especially with the bad conditions being the way they are. A realistic goal might be what? One contact a day, maybe two. When I was struggling to make contacts, I was on the air, had a few contacts under my belt, and I was struggling. That's exactly what I did. I put an 8.5 by 11-inch paper right behind my computer. It's right there, right behind the camera. And it says in big, big block letters, one contact per day, SKCC, POTA, LICW. That's what I looked at every day. And I still look at it. I can sit down now, decide, oh, I'm not going to do any practice today. Maybe I'll just sit there and listen to Morse code and turn the radio on. And I've got that staring at me. And when I go through my logbook, it's very interesting to see certain days, one contact, one contact, one contact. I made my one contact because I figured in my mind I had to. So that was another way of getting over that fright that, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? How many mistakes am I going to make? Just do it. Make the contacts. Over time, it becomes a lot easier. And then again, that is one that is a very common excuse as well. The next one, I guess, I think is point number 4. If you're getting on the air, POTA, or Parks on the Air, is an excellent spot to brush up on your Morse code. There are lots of Morse code operators, nowhere near as many as single sideband, but there's some pretty good Morse code operators. And pretty well any time of the day and well into the evening, if you tune into the POTA page, you're going to find people, all sorts of different speeds. A lot of the time, the POTA page will tell you their speed. So if you're a little nervous about, calling the faster operators because you're not sure what they'll do, hunt the slower ones. A lot of them are newer operators. The people at 14, 15 words per minute, 12 words per minute, they tend to be newer operators. So whatever speed you contact them on, you contact them at the speed that you're good at. If they are slower than what you are normally, slow down to that operator's speed. If you are contacting a good operator, many of them, I'm talking now good operator, a faster operator, probably as opposed to good operator. A faster operator, maybe at 25 or even 30 words per minute. And you send them something at 10 or 12 words per minute, you would be surprised how many of them will slow down. Quite a few will, down to your speed or as much as possible. They'll leave bigger gaps between the letters so that you have time to think and jot it down. The Morse code operators are generally pretty good about that. I also find now with my call sign, like I said, it's a difficult call sign for people to copy, especially when conditions are bad. So I found actually when I contact the faster operators, they've got a lot more experience under their belt. They have less difficulty copying my call sign and sending it back to me than the newer ops. So in many cases, if I want to have a stress-free contact, I can go up into the 20s, 20 words per minute, 25 words per minute, still send to them at my standard 10 or 12. They'll copy my call sign every time. So just because someone is faster doesn't mean you should be ignoring them. But speaking of POTA, the one thing, because I love POTA, I love hunting parks on the air. Along with that, what I did, I took my microphone off my radio, put it in a drawer. Now what am I going to do? I want to hunt parks. I have no mic. I do have a Morse code key. So it was another way of getting me to do that, to get me to settle down and say, there's your key. Practice a little bit and then get on the air and let's go hunt parks. And it worked very, very well for me. It was one that worked quite well. And that also gets rid of the excuse of what happens if the other guy can't copy my call sign or doesn't understand what I'm sending him. Just fine. Some operators, yes, you will get lots of question marks come back. Does it mean you're a lousy sender? No. Band conditions could be bad. They're using a compromised antenna sitting in a park. They may have difficulty pulling you out of the noise. So you get used to people saying, VE3 question mark, VE question mark, SV question mark, and so on. You get used to it. And then you realize that it's not really you. You're not a problem. As long as you put your time in, you can send your call, you can understand it. So it goes back a little bit to get over yourself as well. Another issue that comes up, so I'll call this, I think it's point number 5. I think I'm going in some type of order here. Make a cheat sheet. I like to call it a script. I used to write speeches for prime ministers. And I always call it a script. I wrote down, here's what you're going to say. Bang, 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 bang. Virtually every organization, every group out there, they have a format that they want you to follow or that they suggest you follow. So, if you're in, for instance, the SKCC or any of those, to see SKCC, K1USN, Slow Speed Saunter, which falls under the SKCC, POTA, they all have a sequence as to how they would expect a contact to go. So if someone says this, make a cheat sheet for whatever contacts you're making. I've got lots of them. That was actually one of my biggest hangups because I always thought, I don't know what I'm going to say. What on earth if I make a mistake? What happens if I get the wrong order? All this nonsense that goes through your head when you have key fright. So my solution was to go onto these sites, for instance, the SKCC. They will show you how they expect a contact to go. You go on the K1USN site. They will explain there and show you how they expect a contact to go. Make your own cheat sheet. So I've got one for all these different ones. And when I first started back and I was doing some of these events, believe me, that was right beside my computer and I was basically just looking at it and sending and listening to what they said. I could follow along. It took an awful lot of the stress away. Make yourself a cheat sheet. It'll add a little bit of comfort when you're getting nervous. Now, do I need those cheat sheets now? No, I can do the stuff out of my head. It's still there. For that one or two occasions where I get flustered and I do something wrong and oh my goodness, I screwed up. I can just glance over there, pick up where I was, and off I go. So a cheat sheet for the various events, I've got a bunch of them. I'm more than happy to send you one. You just put your stuff in. But it's a handy way to take the pressure off of you because one of the biggest excuses is just what I said. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to say it. I don't know what order to say it in. With that cheat sheet right beside me, nah, it's not an issue. Because if I get stuck, I just glance over and there it is. I'd have a little stand for it. Stand actually right beside my computer here. So when I'm sending, because my Morse code key is the other side of my computer, I can just glance at it. I can look. I'm not going to sit there and go, oh my goodness, what's my membership number? No, it's right there. So if I don't remember my membership number, I look at the sheet. I've got my membership number and I can just send it away. Right. So those are the small little things that you could do, but can make a huge importance. So you don't know what to say, you just took care of that particular excuse. So point number 6 falls sort of along the lines of one of the other ones, and this is set a target. So if you're doing POTA in Morse code, pick a target. How many parks do you have in total? Let's say single sideband and so on, you've got 700 parks that you've hunted. Now your next target's 800. Try and make them all Morse code. There's lots of little things you can do. It doesn't have to even be by hundreds. You might want to do 50. So the next 50 contacts in your parks are going to be that. Now, if you're planning on activating a park, I don't know if right off the bat I would say to get out there with your Morse code key, but why not? Why not do a 50-50? Get your first 5 contacts by voice even, then settle down and do 5 more contacts with your key. Then decide how you want to wrap the park up. Which one do you want to continue with? There's different ways you can do this to make it easy for yourself. And the whole thing here is to take the pressure off of you. Take that pressure off. So cheat sheet, set a target, all sorts of things you can do. Point number 7, watch for and participate in QRS events, slow speed events. So there are a couple of really big ones out there which come up all the time. K1USN was excellent. That was one of my favorite. Still is. I still try and tune in. The one over here that I would do normally is Friday afternoon, so it's a little difficult sometimes to fit that into a schedule, but it's one I still like. There's another one which the SKCC, or Straight Key Century Club, runs called the Slow Speed Saunter. 12 words per minute or less. Doesn't matter how fast an operator you are. They're expected to come back. If you're doing 10 words, they're expected to try and go back at 10. And I have to say, for the SKCC, the bunch that are in there, they are a fabulous crew. They will go out of their way to help a new operator. And that also was one thing that helped me to break a lot of the key fright. The people in that organization were just phenomenal. They would, if I logged in and I would put, VE3FVQ, QRS, new CW operator or new CW op, they'd send me a note. Hey, I see you're new. What would you like to try? Do you have a frequency? If not, here's a frequency. How many words per minute would you like to do? And we do the exchange. And that settled me down a lot. So now I do it sort of on my end. I look for people who are saying the same thing as what I used to, marking themselves as QRS, and I'll go contact them the same way others contacted me. Paying it back if you want, paying it forward, I guess is the expression. Number 8, I think we're up in that number at this point. I don't pay all that much attention. If you can, find a code buddy. A code buddy is someone that you can practice with. Because most of what we do now is all computerized or apps on a phone or whatever the case is. There's very little face-to-face contact, or if you want, key-to-key contact. So if you look around, if you're taking a class somewhere, look around, see if there's somebody in your class in basically the same time zone. Copy their call sign down, go into QRZ, send them a note. Something along the lines of, hey, you're in my class in such and such a time. I'm wondering if you'd like to be a code buddy and we can practice, copying and sending together, practice the letters that you're learning. Why not? Now you're talking to a real person. You're sending to a real person. You're copying a real person. You're not dealing with a computer that doesn't make mistakes. And we used to have to do that back, 1990. We were in a classroom of 30. And the instructor would just say, pair off, or you sit with this person, you sit with this person. Here's what I want you to send back and forth to each other. And you'd send and you would laugh. You'd screw up or they'd screw up. And the two of you would just have a good laugh and you'd relax. But you got used to dealing with someone on the other end. Get a code buddy. Learn to laugh together. Learn to practice together. Learn to copy, to send back and forth. Don't know how? Get a Zoom account. Zoom will give you what, half hour, 40 minutes of airtime where you can just sit back. It's free. Send back and forth. You've got the other person in front of you. You can send, you can hear each other. Do it that way. If your organization has practice time set aside for people to go in and send back and forth, do it. If the only person you can practice with is maybe a very seasoned and experienced operator, perfect. You're going to get used to listening to someone send probably pretty good code. And you're going to get used to sending to someone who's faster than you and maybe copy someone a little bit faster than you, which is something you should be doing anyways, is try and push yourself to tune in to people who are a little faster. So get yourself a code buddy. It will pay huge dividends down the road. And I know some of my students, talking to them after class and that, yes, they have code buddies and they love it, absolutely love it. So that's one thing I would definitely suggest. If each of you take out a Zoom account, you're good right there. You can always do it on the air too and do it live if you're in an area where you can reach each other. And even that might be fun. Agree on a script before and send each other the script over the air. So that'll up the ante a little bit for you, put a bit more pressure on you, but you're sending to someone you know. You're sending to someone who has become a friend. Get a code buddy. I think you're going to find it's going to make a marvelous difference down the road. Point number 9, spend a lot of time listening to Morse code on the air. I think when we practice, that's one aspect that many people overlook. It's one thing to put 30 minutes or an hour, whatever, into your practice time, copying code on the computer or sending Morse code and so on, all over the computer. It's quite a different thing when you're just listening to real live Morse code. Real live Morse code doesn't sound anything like computer code. Learn to listen to it. Learn to be able to pull those dits and daws out of the noise, like I say with my call sign. All right, so practice it, practice sending it, practice sending to someone else. But yes, listen to real live Morse code. Listen to what it sounds like. See if you can pull the call signs, especially call signs. See if you could pull them out. If you have the scripts that you use for the particular event. So if you're a member of the SKCC, even when you're not in that site, there's nothing wrong with tuning in some of those frequencies and trying to pull up what someone's sending, copy it down. So yes, there's lots of things you can do, but listening to real live Morse code, I think, is one of the most important. Because if you think it's going to sound like your computer does, or any of your apps do on your phone, you're very mistaken. So make it easy for yourself. Listen to real code, copy real code. The fact you're not in the conversation does not mean you can't sit there with a pad and pencil and sit there and copy down what the two people are sending back and forth to each other. It's great practice. And you're listening to real code on the air with all the interference, the noisy bands, people tuning up beside one of the people sending and so on. So very, very important. And tied to that part of it is adjust, especially if you're older, adjust your computer to the tone that works best for your ears. And I did a video on that, how to adjust for hearing loss. Because as we get older, we lose a lot of the higher frequencies. So a lot of the computer programs can be, set up in whatever tone. Find the tone that works for your ears. Set your computer to it. So whatever program you're using, set your computer to it. A lot of the older folks, it's going to be somewhere 550 to maybe 580 or even a little bit lower in the 500s. Then set your radio to it as well. So if you're sending, you're going to hear the same tone of what you would use on your computer. Your ears get used to it. And you can tell the people who don't do that because some of the tones that are coming through when people send Morse code are really piercing. So if you're using Morse code on your radio, check check the tone that you're sending. Remember, some of those new radios out there are at 800, right? The tone is set for 800, which is quite piercing. Listen to real code. Listen to it a lot. And what I found was because fortunately I work from home, I could have my radio on beside me on one of the call frequencies, one of the SKCC call frequencies, and I could be working away. And all of a sudden, someone would go on that frequency and start calling CQ. And while I'm doing whatever work I'm doing, my brain got used to it and started translating, right? It was telling me what that person was sending, even though I was still working on the other project. I could follow that conversation completely. So the more you listen, the more you're going to start to recognize things, the more you're going to recognize, abbreviations like TU for thank you, or RST, or FB for fine business. You start to recognize those, and now you're putting two letters together. As you go into it more, you're going to start to put three letters, four letters, and so on together. And you're going to be copying words. Listen to a lot of real life code. And I guess the last one for me, when I stop to think about it, number 10, celebrate each contact you make. If you're really suffering from key fright in those early stages as you try to overcome it, aim for whatever, but celebrate each one. And I found with myself, the SKCC has what they call a Centurion Award, which is 100 contacts, 100 different individuals that you've contacted. And at the beginning, it was just like never going to happen, way out there. But as I got closer to it, all of a sudden it became exciting, and I started to celebrate. Ooh, I just got number 60. Now I need 61. And I just got number 70. And when it got towards the end of it, when I was up around 90, and I would post on their SCED page, my call sign QRS, 10 more to C, or Centurion, which is what it is, 10 more to C. And people would start sending me messages. Right here, I've got one. We haven't spoken before. Let's do a contact. So a lot of the excitement around that supplanted the key fright, and now it became exciting to make these contacts. And everyone I got, it was, wow, one more, one down. I'm getting closer to the goal. These are all little things that you can do, but celebrate each contact, celebrate each award you get, because it's a big deal. One, because you got the award, and two, because you were able to do it in spite of key fright. And yeah, there are still days where I look at my radio and I say, maybe I won't be able to contact anybody today. Maybe the bands are so bad today, or you hear people say bands are awful. So I'm thinking to myself, probably not going to be able to contact anyone. And then sure enough, somebody comes through crystal clear. And there's that excuse gone out the window. And I'll pick up everything, get my pencil, my pad, and answer them. It's a fight. Key fright is something you may deal with for a long, long time. But you can win. You can do it. If you like this video, make comments down below. Please like, subscribe, share it if you wish. Whatever works for you. It's Keith, Victor Echo 3, Sierra Victor Quebec, the Shaky Key. Hope you had fun. Best of luck on your journey. 73.